Hey, my name's ShawNshawN. I sell art on ShawNshawN.co and specials on eBay. Today we're going to review Monster Hunter. So this is a film by director Paul W.S. Anderson. He also wrote the film, so you have this nice director-writer combination. The time is 1 hour and 39 minutes, so right at that sweet spot. Pretty fast-paced for an action film, I would say. A lot of these films, like Mission Impossible, get like 2 hours or something, so this is nice that it's only 1 hour and 39 minutes. You have actors Mila Jovovich is Artemis, kind of the lead captain of her team. Tony Jaa is the hunter, so this man from another world, another dimension, and he's kind of like a native Chinese pirate soldier. You have Tai, one of the other soldiers of Artemis' team. Megan Good also plays one of the soldiers. Funny enough, IMDb was too lazy to even put the actors' names next to their characters. Like, dude, what's going on? IMDb fired everyone or what? And you have Ron Perlman as Admiral, one of these other captains of this other civilization. So there's this group of army, and they're riding in their Humvees, probably in somewhere like Afghanistan. It's not really known. They give you a location, but it's kind of like that scientific, like, this coordinates, and you're like, where's that supposed to be, right? And it's probably Afghanistan. It looks like Afghanistan. And they come up and they're looking for this missing team, and they see the tracks and it disappear. Like, what the hell's going on? They see this storm coming in. They try to outrun the storm. They can't outrun the storm. And the storm, they're kind of magically sent to this other world, right? So kind of Wizard of Oz kind of feel to it. They wake up, they go from this rocky terrain, kind of like Afghanistan looking terrain, to like sand dunes, and they're like, there's no sand dunes in where we're at, right? Why are there sand dunes? Where do we end up? And they start driving around. All of a sudden they see this huge creature come out of the ground. They're like, oh my God, run for it, right? So they're trying to outrun the thing. The thing upholds their Jeep. They get separated. The team leaves one way, and the captain gets kind of eaten, supposedly. And next thing you know, they wake up in a cave, and the captain's like in one of these sacks by these spider creatures. She breaks through out of the sack, kind of like Alien, right? And she tries to break this other guy. He's dead. This other one of her teammates gets out, but it turns out he has all these spider bugs like living inside him, so he's gone. So she barely makes it out of there. She runs out, and then she finds this native, the hunter, right? And the hunter, they kind of fight back and forth, and they become friends, and then they said, oh, I'll help you get out of my world. And they go to this tower, and they kind of work their way out of this bizarre world. So right off the bat, you know, it's kind of this weird Chinese production with Tencent. One thing, the dialogue's just kind of like, I don't know, they took some crappy Chinese and translated straight to English. I don't know, but the writings, it just didn't ring true, I would say. It could have written some of the lines better. I mean, it could also be that this is the same language in a video game, because this is based off a video game that's had, I think, 5 different iterations. They did bring one of the writers was actually from the video game, so probably they're using language from the video game, so maybe that's why it's off. But it has this weird Asian production feel to the film. One of the things you can see is they spent a ton of money on the CGI. The CGI is pretty phenomenal. There's only a few flaws here and there. Like they did a continuity error where the Jeep's flipped, and all of a sudden they go back and the Jeep's driving, and you're like, well, they didn't show the scene where they flipped the Jeep back. Well, no, they flipped the Jeep over. Or they can't flip the Jeep over. They're trying to flip it over. Next thing you know, there's just like a little bit of a continuity error where it's flipped, and then all of a sudden they're driving, and you're like, when did they flip it back, you know? So there's a little bit of error there from an editing standpoint, but not too major. Really good special effects. The music is a little strange. They have this kind of weird, I don't know, some of the scenes have this weird kind of video game sound to it. Maybe it's from the video game, I don't know. So they're using this Japanese style video game sound to it, so it just doesn't sound true. One thing that was really quirky too is they have a scene where the army's kind of chanting as they're marching along, like, we're gonna get out of here, but it doesn't ring true. If you've ever seen like Stanley Kubrick or Platoon or other army songs, when they're marching, you know, army songs tend to be very vulgar, very kind of slapdash, really, you know, kind of put downish. And this was just so, I don't know, PG kind of language, like so weird, like Disney wrote the language. It doesn't make any sense. You're like, dude, that's not how the army chants, so it just comes out completely fake. Which is really weird, because they made this fake song, so they spent time on that, obviously, to make a fake, you know, army chant versus researching. And then the rest of the language is kind of like, oh, this dialogue is just so painful. And you got to think it probably would have cost them like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 more to make better writing. Like, it literally wouldn't cost them any money to get like a second, third right. Versus, like, they probably spent millions on the CGI, right? And then they spent like, they cut off a couple thousand off the writing. You're like, another thing is they got some great actors for it. They have Mila Jovovich and Ron Perlman. So some really big kind of A-list actors. Maybe they're not A-list now, maybe they're kind of B-list, but you know, they're major actors, so they do good job acting. But again, if the dialogue sucks, it's kind of like, like this dialogue's like, oh, it's just kind of, it's cringeworthy, some of the dialogue scenes. And one thing you might want to note why this comes off so weird, there was another weird movie from Tencent. Tencent is a Chinese production, and Tencent is connected directly, indirectly to the Chinese government. So there's kind of like this weird propaganda feel to the film. Like in The Great Wall, there's like this weird kind of propaganda feel of the Chinese will defeat any Westerner, and here you have this Western soldier fighting this kind of native medieval peasant Chinese, and they tussle back and forth, and it's kind of like the theme of like, hey, if we go to war, we'll fight it out, but it only works the economy only be resolved if we fight together against the monsters, right? So, which is a good message, but it does come off kind of propagandish, I would say. And I think that's really the intent behind these films, unfortunately, which isn't bad, but it's kind of like, oh, this only works in a communist government. It doesn't work in a capitalist government, right? People are going to see through that and be like, what is this garbage, right? So it's like you gotta have like a real like background story to like these characters, and they come off kind of wooden. I think it's because they're based on video game characters as well, so you have your limitations as well there. Another thing, I don't think this movie's gonna do well. There was only 3 people in the movie theater. It was me and 2 other people, and this is the opening weekend, so if you have 3 people, they have 4 shows out, and there's like literally no one came. Like, I think they went more to the old reruns that they're putting out in the cinema versus this new one. This new release is just bad. I mean, the only thing I can say for it is because it doesn't have any competition, because most people have seen those other movies out that are reruns. Like, I went and saw Wonder Woman by accident, and it was that old Wonder Woman, it wasn't the new Wonder Woman, so I was like, ah, dude. But outside of that, I don't think, people are gonna recommend this movie. It has really good CGI. Like, again, they probably spent millions on that. They spent a lot of money on the actors. They hired a good director, so semantically it comes together, CGI-wise it comes together, but then this dialogue just doesn't come together. The backstory doesn't really kind of satisfy you somehow. But again, I'm not the video game fan. Maybe they were relying on a lot of the video game fans. Like, I know when Doom came out, Doom was, really popular video game. I played it. I was a super fan of Doom, so I overlooked any flaws in the plot. And other people, like my wife, I don't think she had played Doom, so she's like, oh, this is a cornball movie, right? So I think that's kind of the reaction. Like, I'm not a fan of the video game, so it's kind of like I'm seeing it as a normal movie. And a lot of video game movies don't really play as movies per se, but they played at the video game fan per se. But again, if no one's coming out, the TV news stations all across, they're always nonstop putting out, COVID is going to kill you, this many people died, and then, the cinemas are getting slaughtered by this, right? So, the TV news are just indirectly just going to kill off all these cinemas. It's going to be really sad, I think. The cinemas made some of them made a good transition with IMAX and stuff, but some of their prices and some of the cinema are off. So I don't know if these cinemas are going to survive with, this few films coming out. And obviously the films don't want to come out if no one's going to show up to the film. So it's kind of like a self-reinforcing trend until, we have the vaccine, so maybe next year the cinemas will be fine. But I mean, how long can you go as a cinema without earning any money? They're barely making it by as it is. So now it's like, I don't know, I feel really bad for these cinemas, and these TV news is just completely irresponsible in my view of scaring people away from the cinema. You can go to the grocery store, but then people don't order from Amazon. Like, why is the grocery store okay, but the cinema's not? It's like, but, it is what it is. That's my take on it. I think they got a raw deal from the TV news and paranoia about it. But, it is what it is. But anyway, I don't think I can recommend this movie. You can watch it for free, but don't pay any money for this movie. And that's my take of Monster Hunter. And hope to see you in the next movie review. Thanks for watching, guys.